So, what I wanted to do today is just briefly describe the introduction of legal project management into Addleshaw Goddard. It's not the official version. I no longer work at Addleshaw Goddard, but the facts are the facts, the opinions are mine, and it's a story of ups and downs. So when we started, a lawyer said to me, when we talked about project management, that it was just common sense. And as my grandmother used to say to me, for all that it's called common sense, it isn't that common. And we know that at the top end of project management, there are massive difficulties in delivering projects to the cost, time, quality constraints that Antonio has described, particularly in large government initiatives, large IT initiatives. And we're not talking about that sort of project management today. We're talking about something that is probably pitched between those two extremes. So why did we do it? Was it necessary to do it at AG? We thought it was. First, we went through a lot of client feedback that had been collected by client relationship partners. We discovered that clients believed that we always got the law right, or nearly always got the law right, but they felt bruised by the underreporting of progress. They felt sideswiped by bills that seemed different to estimates. And they felt bemused by the fact that lawyers were capable of executing their work to their own satisfaction and not necessarily to the client's satisfaction. From a firm's point of view, we wanted to improve financial performance. We wanted to eliminate overruns. We wanted to do work to budget. And for the individual lawyer, there is nothing, I suspect, less motivating than to stay up all night, eat 3 pizzas, do a completion, and then discover that all your work is not going to get billed anyway because it's way over estimate. And we thought, and we have perhaps rethought this, we thought there was a market opportunity to be an early adopter, to be an innovator, to be a market leader by going gung-ho for legal project management. So it became an integral part of the Delivering Differently program, of which I was the program director. Now, one of the things underpinning that program was this book, which had seemed to influence a large number of the thought leaders at AG. And this book talks about roles such as legal process analyst and legal project manager, which he's expanded on in later books. So between my first and second interviews at AG, I read this book. In fact, I read it on the train going to my second interview and was somewhat startled when the lady opposite me on the train leant over and said, "That looks like a good idea. Do you need a hand?" So what did we do? As a result of reading that book, I was pretty convinced that we needed a legal project manager in the business. So my first action was to recruit 3 roles to our team. One was a process analyst. One was a change project manager, someone much more like myself. And the third one was a legal project manager. And this person was deliberately a trained solicitor, but somebody with experience of project management. So this is a person who had effectively left the legal profession and had detoured into project management, and we brought him back in. So working with this person, we put together a vision and strategy for legal project management at AG, based on a value proposition that we tried to build up and articulate, what it meant for both clients and for the internal lawyer. And a large part of that value proposition turned out to be just enough project management. So there seemed to be a belief that we as project managers can oversell this concept to the world at large. So we made clear that all the way through this project, we were simply trying to implement just enough project management for the matter at hand, for the portfolio at hand, for the work that needed to be done, and no more. We then did a current assessment of the state of project management inside AG. AG was not without legal project management. It had had a quality function. They had done a lot of work on what project management might look like, but it was not yet fit for purpose. And by doing that current assessment of the vision strategy against the current implementation, we came up with a project plan. And that took us from the third quarter of 2012 through to the first quarter of 2013. So the implementation project, we started off by developing an operating model, and a large part of the operating model was trying to work out what does the team look like, where does the legal project manager sit in the organisation. And our conclusion was, and I still believe this is right, is to have a central team of people who are trained to do this and who look after the intellectual capital that underpins the activity, but to keep that team as small as possible and to have people around the organisation, around the firm, fee earners, trained lawyers, who can themselves become legal project managers. On some larger matters, we saw people from the specialist team doing the lead, and on some smaller ones, we saw people from the divisions doing it. And on some very small matters, we saw no legal project management being used at all. So this is not a one-size-fits-all type of solution, but a lot of work had to go into developing how this would work in order to sell it to anybody in the organisation. We were doing a lot of work on process mapping, process modelling, and my view is I'm a process person. Everything is a process. Everybody knows that. It's a fact. Nothing you can do about it. So we did a process model for legal project management, and I'll come back to talk about that process model later. But it was important to have that because it showed that we were applying the disciplines that we wanted the firm to apply to itself to ourselves. We built a toolkit. So the toolkit was basically a library of templates and guidance notes that were then added to the process maps and the process models that would allow anybody doing project management to go in and pull off the latest version of that particular template to use it on their matter. So these were things like a matter charter, a matter specification, a planning template. We also built some technology, although to be fair, the technology was no more complex than Microsoft Project. We did look at other firms' offerings, but at that time, early 2013, we found nothing that was significantly good to adopt. I suspect that has now changed. We looked at Elevate's Kale product, for example. I think that's much better now than it was 1 or 2 years ago. We did go and get Engage, which Thomson Reuters were positioning as a legal project management tool set. I'll come on to talk about later why that didn't totally work for this project, but we implemented it inside the finance team. I think we were the first people in the UK to take Engage, and we used it as part of the overall toolkit to hold matter budgets, matter templates. And those templates were based on the process models. We also developed some training, 3 major types of training. So we developed an in-house curriculum, a massive set of, let's be fair, slideware that we could turn into a 2-hour course, a half-day course, a 1-day course, and up to a 3-day course. And we gave that course to different audiences. We did a cut-down version for admin assistants because they were getting involved in project administration, not project management, but project administration. We did some Microsoft project training for teams working on matters, and we developed an external course that has, I believe, not yet been delivered anywhere, but it's due to be delivered to a major bank early next year. And all the time we were doing this, we were trying to sell and be evangelists, and when I say we, I mean the 2 of us were trying to sell this to anybody in AG that would listen. So every opportunity that we had to sell project management, we were trying to take advantage of, to just promote it any way we could to add value to business development, to matter execution. One of the lessons we'll discover later on is that until clients ask for it, internal lawyers don't necessarily want to do it. So that was the implementation project. I talked about the process map, and this is the process, a very simple process map for legal project management. And anyone who has been Prince 2 trained will recognize those sorts of words from that sort of world. But all projects go through 5 phases, and these 4 are always the same. It doesn't mean they're always the same on every single project you do, but you will do these phases on every project. Executing the matter is the bit that changes. So projects are about temporary organizations executing temporary processes in order to achieve an identified result. So the art of project management is to identify what is that process we're going to do to deliver the things we have to deliver in order to meet the client's goals. Now, one of the things that we had done in the process mapping work was, in effect, to build process maps of nearly all the major project types, process types, service types, matter types that we delivered to clients. So we had if you like, an arsenal now of probably some 80 process models for the different types of work that the firm did. So one of the things that we were able to do is to, in effect, say we can put this legal project management map as a wrap around that specific process. If we know what that specific process is, we can then merge the two things together, customize them in a single piece of software, and then export the whole thing out to Microsoft projects, which we did on a number of matters. And it was very interesting to see the reaction of different lawyers to that. One or two lawyers thought it was truly brilliant and that we had struck a new mother lode that would make our fortunes. Nearly everybody else thought that was way too clever and that we were cheating, that was basically de-skilling their operation and we're just being too clever by half. But somewhere in there, I believe, is the way forward. And this is, I believe, how it all fits together. So we model the process. And I use the word model rather than map because when I model a process, I have information about not just the visual breakdown of a piece of work into stages and steps and activities, but I have information about who does it, how long it takes, how long it's taken, what are the rules of thumb that govern how long it might take under different circumstances. And out of that, we can start to develop standard estimates. Now, let's be clear, this doesn't mean that there is one standard estimate for every type of work. Far from it. There is a bank of data that helps you work out how long something is likely to take, who should do it, what duration it might last over, what delays are likely to be involved, what the client's role in it is. But there is something there that allows us to start going into our historical base and saying, these things tend to take this sort of time, and if it's one of these, it'll be more like this than the other. Out of that, we were then able to create matter templates. So the process stages were pulled down into engage, and we were able to add where we had them. We didn't have them for very many processes. We didn't. Let me be clear about that. But where we had them, we were able to use that to then look at specific pieces of work and say, this is how we're going to apply those standard estimates to that piece of work. So as the work comes in, the first question we ask ourselves is, do you know how to do this piece of work? To which the answer, of course, is always yes. But if you ask the question, do you have a map for doing this piece of work? Do you have it written down somewhere? Is it not just in your head, but do you actually know how you can communicate this? Is the surgeon capable of explaining to the rest of the team the purpose and the nature of the operation? If the answer is no, at some point, somehow, you have to model the process again. But if the answer is yes, then we can pull in the matter templates with the information and standard estimates that we have accumulated, and we can start to plan a specific matter. And every matter is unique. Even though I'm a project manager and I tend to think in terms of generics, I understand that every matter is different, just as every project I've ever done is different, but somehow every project is the same. But I understand that now we're planning a specific matter. And out of that comes a specific matter plan and matter budget, which allows us then to execute the matter. And then when we're doing that, we start to do work and time recording. And I'm a great believer that while the billable hour is probably dead as a target, time recording for people whose work is the major component of their service is not likely to go away anytime soon. But that produces the actual data that we can then start feeding back into the process to say, how do we now refine the matter templates? How do we refine the standard estimates? and how do we make improvements to the process. So this is our version of the continuous improvement that Antonio was talking about at Clifford Chance. Now, the next builds will explain why my wife never allows me to buy wallpaper. I apologize for these colors. But this blob really shows the scope of the process mapping software that we used to model the process, to hold the standard estimates, and to plan the specific matter by building that picture of the whole matter inside the process mapping software. We used Engage to create the matter template and to help us plan the specific matters. And we used our practice management system, Elite, to help us execute the matter. So we started to build a picture of how not only could the processes fit together, but how the software could fit together. So that was where we got to. After the program finished in early 2014, we did some work on in-house project management. So we created a governance framework underpinned by a project management method. We implemented a change investment board. So we now have an executive committee that oversees, approves, prioritizes, monitors all project investments. And the key word is investment, not project. We're trying to get the firm to think of these things as investments. We put in place a gate process, so every investment now has to go through these gates. Before we did this, we were discovering it was very easy to get things authorized. You just ignored all in-house procedures and went to the managing partner and said, if you don't do this, we'll die, or I'll die, or even you'll die. And then it went on. So we had projects that ran forever and a day with no control over them because they'd been authorized. This was put in place to make certain we had control over in-flight projects. So, scorecard on what we did on legal project management. These are the pluses. We have the processes model. We know how to do legal project management, or at least theoretically. We've got a toolkit built. We have a library of matter templates, of document templates, of guidance notes, of guidance on estimating, for example, and we have guidance on how to use technology. We have lawyers trained. We even have some lawyers trained in Microsoft projects, which I didn't think I would see. We've used it on a small number of matters, mainly some big ones, and we've used it in a small number of bids. So we actually discovered we had more traction in business development than we did in matter execution. We've got Engage in use, and it's being developed. And we have managed to integrate the process mapping and the project management software. So we are perfectly capable of building a first cut matter plan in Microsoft Project in an almost automated fashion. So the negatives, the specialist team never grew. So the specialist team stayed at 1 until it went down to 0. And it stayed at 0 since it went down to 0. It's never gone back up again. So we lost our specialist project manager at the end of 2013. The program finished 2 months later. The delivering differently program finished 2 months later. So we lost the impetus to recruit a replacement. Engage is stuck in finance. I always wanted Engage to be more for the firm at large. Finance have rather taken it over and have put a bit of a lock on it, and I think that's a mistake. And we were not helped by the loss of our finance director at the end of 2013, who had championed the use of Engage. The whole thing became self-championed. It's unfortunate, but I became myself the biggest champion of legal project management in the firm, and that was not the right place for it to be. So I don't believe we ever attracted sufficient senior lawyer support outside the core team of partners working on the Delivering Differently program. Post-program, LPM went into limbo, and I think it's largely still there. So my brutal score is 4 out of 10. Could have done better, should do better, must do better next time around. That's not a reflection on AG, that's a reflection on us and the team. Lessons learned. I didn't think you could be too early to the party, but you can be. I think we were. Would have probably been easy starting it off inside a legal division instead of in an exotic new change team. Business development proved to be easier to work with than matter execution, so very happy to work with us on bids, with the lawyers, but not so happy when we started trying to help them do their work. Litigation was the most fruitful area, followed by corporate. Litigation because they understand it, and the Jackson reforms definitely helped. Corporate because they work on multi-team transactions that they understood the need to coordinate. Most lawyers are already convinced they're doing project management. I don't believe that to be true. And it needs a degree of compulsion from the top, or it needs more grief from clients. And that the more grief we get from clients about the way we do matters, the more this will move along. What comes next in terms of will clients pay for it? Our experience was they wouldn't if it was seen as an additional resource, but they would if we could replace the partner with a legal project manager doing what the partner said he was doing, but wasn't necessarily doing, more efficiently and at a cheaper rate. Or where it's very complex, or where there are multiple law firms. We had some success on putting LPMs into collaborative effort. So, where should we go from here? I think we need to build on the work in business development. I think we need to extend the range of services and functions. We need to do more reporting. We need to do more matter inception. We need to be right at the front of the work. We need to make it demonstrably legal. So, as Antonia said, it needs to be specific to lawyers. It needs to hook into risk and compliance. It needs to hook into all the things that lawyers are concerned about. We need to learn from other industries. We need to use things like the equivalence of function point analysis in software development so we can start to size how big things are. We need to learn from other disciplines. We need to learn about the whole world of Agile. We need to learn about how other industries use earned value analysis to report rather than using WIP, which is a financial measure. We need to automate it to make it into a system, to make it work better. And the project manager has the opportunity, I think, to be an integrator, a coordinator, but taking away the complexity from the client, but delivering the seamless product that the client wants. That's what we're trying to avoid. That's what we tried to avoid in what we did. We were never trying to make the project manager an arcane and peculiar creature. I do believe that legal project management is important. I believe that matter management is important for clients, for firms, and for lawyers. And I think with the correct degree of humility and respect for each other's discipline, I believe that project managers and lawyers can achieve a more fruitful collaboration than perhaps we were able to do so far at AG. Thank you.